this is Sherry Hayes with MomDelights.com, and I thought I'd take the time this morning to share with you how I print and bind old books, especially the ones that I've gotten from Google Play. Excuse me, it's early in the morning. I do this early in the morning because my children are quiet. Okay, anyway, so here are some examples of some that I just did last night. This one right here is it's the second year language reader. And here you see the contents and stuff. But what it is I like to use old books off of the internet. They're free, they're often lots of things that are interesting and useful that you can't find in print anywhere else. And I have lots of devices, and I read them also off of devices. I have Kindle and Google Books, and we have like 5 tablets in the house and 4 smartphones and I think 5 laptops, 3 desktops, and so we have lots of availability to read on devices, but there's just something about holding a book. And the way I've developed to do this is that it's almost like a cross between perfect binding and, as you can see when you open the book, it's just like a regular book inside. Can you see? And so it's the feel of a book, it's the look of a book, but the information you just can't find anyplace else. You can go to a used bookstore or something and find an ancient text, but then you're afraid for your children to use it because it'll fall apart, you know, especially with some of the rough handling. And some of these books are like from the late 1800s, and so you can imagine if you bought that as an antique book, you wouldn't want a 5-year-old reading it. So anyway, so first off, I want to show you how I print these off. So let me go over here. I've got, this is, first I'll show you, you go to Google Books, you can do a search, and go to Google Books, and there's a click here for my library. Now, if you don't have a library, that's okay. You can go in here and you can start a search, such as, let's say that I'm just going to look for the McGuffies, okay? Okay, I'm going to put in McGuffey Reader. All right, now I'm going to do my search. And over here, we see a list of different things. One thing to do to narrow your search is to go to Search Tools and click over here where it says Any Books. I don't know if you can see that, but then you go down and you say Free Google eBooks. That will narrow it so you're just getting the free stuff, the old stuff. Okay, now I've narrowed my search. Let's say I'm going to go to the new McGuffey First Reader. What I do then, I can clear this search here. What I do then, once I find what I want, then I'm going to go add to my library, and see this dialog box comes up, and so you just go My Books on Google Play and click that. Okay, now it'll say added to my books on Google Play. See that? So I've already got my library up right here, and it's all linked to your Google account. If you have Gmail, this is part of the thing. So here I have a number of books that I think are worthy of at least being interested in. There are certain ones that I go in here whenever I have time to print, and I select the book that I want to print. This is a really good reader right here. Lots of good stuff in it. So I'm going to click on this, and it brings up this page. Now I'm going to click on the book itself. If you see this right here, this means that the whole book is online. Not every book that's listed is actually online in its entirety. Some of them are just previews. They might be copywritten, somebody's bought in the copywritten rights, whatever. This one is online in its entirety. So I'm going to click that. Excuse me. And here we see they have a picture at the beginning. There are a number of ways to evaluate whether you want to save a book or print it. You can see this little icon right here. It looks like a little black box with little white things in it. Click on that, and it'll give you a view of the whole book, and you can click on any page you want and review it and say, well, this does look interesting, kind of like that. Sometimes these books aren't complete when they're scanned in, and so you might get a partial book, and that would be really bad if you printed that out, and I've done that before. That's why I can say it. So you want to check and make sure all the pages are there. Excuse me again. Okay, so now you've got this. You decided you want to do this book, so now we're going to go over here. In order to print it, we need to download it onto our computer or device. Okay, so I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to download this as a PDF. All right, this box here, you see that little thing right there? Okay, so I'm going to download this as a PDF. Here I am. Okay, now it's going to ask for this little, to make sure I'm not a robot. Okay, so I'm going to submit this. Now I have this available here for download. Now it's not downloaded at this point. I have to wait for it to load up all the way. You can see it's crawling along here. You have to download it all the way, and it's taken a minute or two, but that's okay. I have two little helpers that just woke up, and they're standing beside me. Here's one little helper, and here's one little helper. Okay, so it's still crawling across, and there we go. Okay, now it's complete. Now up here I'm seeing that I can download it, so I'm going to go ahead and download it. And since it's a language reader, I don't know if that's I'm going to say, let's see, just a minute. That's not going to let me do it. Okay, well, I'll just put this as, just try to remember. It's a language reader, right? Okay, anyway, so now I'm going to say save, right? And now it's downloading down here at the bottom of my screen. Now I'm going to open show in folder. I'm using Google Chrome, by the way. Okay, so now I'm going to double click on that so that I get it in my Adobe. Okay, Adobe Reader. Now it's important to do it in Adobe Reader because you're going to have a really cool dialog box to go with this. Now one of the things you need in order to print these books and print these and make them into actual books is you need to have a printer with a duplexer. In other words, it can print on both sides of the page. That's very important. Now I'm using a Canon, but I also have an HP that does the same thing. You know, usually when you get an all-in-one, it'll automatically do that. Okay, and I like the Office versions of the printers. They're a little more expensive, but you can get the ink like does 2,000 pages on the ink, and so it's a real saver as far as the ink is concerned, and they do more, and they're sturdier, they're heavier. Okay, so here I have Language Reader. Okay, now I'm seeing a white screen, which is scary at first because you think, did I download it? But Google Books has a lot of white space at first. There we go. Now it's coming up. Okay, now what I want to do is I'll review it, make sure I've got what I want here. Yeah, it's a 5th year language reader. We're going to go down. There's a picture. There's a preface, and now we're getting to content. So everything's here. Great. All right. Now I'm going to go over here to my printer icon, and I'm going to click that. Now, Adobe Reader is this wonderful dialog box here, and what it's going to do is it's going to give me a lot of options so that I can print my book out. Now, I'm not going to print, like I think this one is, look, 505 pages. I'm not going to print 505 pages at one time. It won't work, for one thing. If you want to do what I'm going to do, I only print 16 pages at a time, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, but first what I want to do is I want to print in grayscale, which is black and white, and I want to save ink and toner. That's going to help my ink last a lot longer. And this is a book, and when you're printing in black and white, it doesn't matter really for these books anyway, whether you do optimum or you do like a draft kind of thing. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, so pages to print, I'm not going to do all. Okay, I'm going to do only 16 pages. Now, let me close this for a second and show you something about when something's printed on Google Books. What you're going to notice is that their page count starts at number 1, and this is their page number 1. Well, I don't necessarily want this page in my book. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to print that page. Now, this is useful. I could print, no, this, I don't want this one either. Never mind. I don't want this, I don't want to print this out. Talk about color ink right there. And I don't want to print this page out, and I'm going to go here, and there you go. There's a good page. No, this is actually page 6, but this is where I'm going to start my print. And this is where the tricky part comes in, because I want to print only 16 pages, but I don't want to start with page number 1. I want to start with page number 6. Okay, so if you think about how pages are printed out, you have to count number 6 in your count of 16. So when I am in my dialog box, which I'll show you again, and this gets confusing, you might have to stop and show this to yourself a number of times. Oh, okay, so I'm going to start my page count with 6. But I'm only going to do 16 pages. I'm going to have to count page number 6 as one of my 16 pages. So 6 plus 16 would normally be 22, but I'm only going to go to 21 because I'm counting in number 6 as one of my pages. Confusing, but I think once I'm done, you'll see. Okay, so here in my Canon printer dialog box, I have these different options: size, poster, multiple, booklet. I'm going to go for booklet. Now, you notice this changed all of a sudden here. Look. And if I go over here, and this is my print preview, by the way. If I go through this, you'll see, do you see how that changes? This is because this is printing a little booklet of 16 pages. This is extremely important. If you try to print 500 pages in a booklet form, then you'll have to staple all those pages in the middle and try to fold that whole big wad and make a book out of it. Or you could cut it in half. It does not work. Let me tell you, it just does not work. So doing 16 pages at a time is the way you want to go. So anyway, so everything else is good. I've got my 16 pages. I've got my booklet. It says both sides, sheets from 1 to 4. Binding's going to be on the left, which is how we bind books in English. And I'm going to go ahead now. I would normally hit print, but I already have an example printed out. And let me have my helpers move just a second. Guys, you have to get up. I have things set up, okay? All right. Why don't you get down, all right? Thank you. Okay. Okay. So anyway, one thing that helps me, because if you're doing a lot, I'm not necessarily going to print this whole book. This is an example. I've already done stuff last night, and so I just want to show you how I keep a tally sheet. This is a tally sheet I've done. And as you can see, I've kind of taken the pages and I've done them in sections of 16. And then what I've done, and actually I got a little smarter here. And then I check it off as I print it. My printer is in another room actually. So it's one of those wireless ones. So anyway, so then you would click print. I'm going to print cancel because I already got something ready. Okay, now this is the first stage. Okay, so now you're going to continue this throughout, but for each set of 16, here is one right here. Okay, so here I have my 16 pages, right? Now you'll notice it's like on one side you'll see the page you started with which in this case is 114, and the page that the 16 ended with, which is page 129. Now remember, these pages are not going to align with the pages you see in your dialog box, okay? Because as you remember, this is page 6, so it's going to be different. So you kind of have to check those in your brain, kind of keep track. Well, anyway, so this is the page I begin with, 114. This is the page the 16 pages ended with, 129. Now on the middle of the other on the other side is in the middle of this little booklet, so the pages are consecutive. This is 121 and 122. It's good to check that, okay? And it's important to know that part, because then when you're going to use your long arm stapler and begin to develop your booklets together, you'll need to know that. And this is important too. You need to have these things in order to bind these books. Now, there is another method, all right? You could conceivably do this. You could cut it in the middle if you have a paper cutter, and you could use a 3-hole, you could punch it, and then you could sew it with dental floss, and then you could cover it. And I've done that too, and it works wonderfully. I do recommend it. But this is kind of like, and it does feel a lot like a book as well, but this is just a little bit better, I think. It takes a little more time, but I think it's better. Okay, so now I have a long arm stapler. I have a hot glue gun. Okay, now this is my old, I paid $7 for this about 10 years ago. And it has been through the war, trust me. Okay, then I also have these nifty little binder clips, all right? And could you hand me some little slips of paper? And I'll show you a little technique I have for binding all this together. Over there I have some little slips of green, on top of the paper cutter. Okay, anyway. So, little slips of little green paper or something. Just give me one, and I'll show you. So what I'm going to do is, since a regular, thank you, honey. Since a regular letter size is 8.5 by 11 inches, right? So that means the exact middle of this will be 5.5 inches. So I'm going to take my nifty-difty. Now, a regular stapler will not work for this, okay? Regular stapler is only going to get you to here. And you need to be able to staple right in the middle of your page. That's 5.5 inches. I'm going to take my long arm stapler, and I have set it to 5.5 inches and just a little more, because I found that it's exactly in the middle if I do it that way. You kind of have to gauge it and mess around a little bit. Okay, so for this one, this is a mock-up. I've already printed this and done this, but I had some extra and I thought it would be perfect. So I'm going to line this page up on the 5.5, and I'm going to staple it in the middle. I'm going to put 3 staples in this one. I'm going to do one at the top, and one almost in the middle. Here it is. It's not rocket science, don't worry about that. And I'm going to put one at the bottom here. All right, yep. So I've got 3 staples in that. Now the next thing I will do is I will fold this. And I like to use the handle of a butter knife. I know it, like I said, it's not rocket science. I'm doing this one-handed, holding the camera. Okay, so anyway, if you use the handle of a butter knife, you can get a really good crease here. So what you want to do is you want to keep building these books. As I said, you have a list and you check it off, and you keep building these books, and then you're going to assemble these books. Now remember, you bind it on the left-hand side, and what you're going to do is you're going to have a stack of these, all right? And then you want to take and you want to use binder clips. I like the biggies because then if I have a thick book. And you're going to have these sheets together, and you're going to bind them together so that you have a really tight assembly at the top. Then, what I like to do, I heat up my handy-dandy glue gun. And then you take, and I have some, because I use file folders to cover, if you'll see this. This is actually a file folder that I have cut to size, and I use the fold in the middle because I find that it works perfectly to go over there, and then I have a really neat presentation that way. And I have a large paper cutter that I use for that. So anyway, I'll cut this out into a little strip here, you see. And so then when I have my when I have my booklets together, then I will take and glue a little strip. I have 3 binder clips. Then I'll take and glue a little strip around the whole assembly in strategic places, 3 or 4 places. Then I will take, and this takes a little bit of doing because you have to be able to cut this so that this side is a little over 5.5, but don't count your binding in, and this side has to be a little over 5.5 inches. And then you want this to be a little over 8.5 inches. you see, because you want to have a little overlap. You see, you don't want it just to the book. You want it to have a little bit of overlap. So you have to be kind of careful to calculate all that in. It takes a little bit of understanding, and every book is a little bit different. And so sometimes you actually need more or less, whatever. But don't count your binding in, though, otherwise you're going to end up really short. So what I like to do is I like to take these, and I would have a whole stack, and they would be glued together. Then I lay it where I want it inside this binder paper. And then I will take and I will use my hot glue gun and I will glue the side. And very quickly then I will attach this and I'll rub it. Put it in place. And then when that's cooled, then I open it up and I do another bead here. And I'll rub that. And I'll do another bead here. And then pretty much your book is assembled. One thing I haven't done with this one is, now see, I actually used some color to put the first page on. And I actually printed out something that I will place. I will glue it. I will cut it. I will glue it. And I have a title to glue here. I will put something on the binder so that I can, see what it is. And then I will cover I actually have something also that rounds the corners automatically. And then I will put contact paper over the whole thing. And it'll just make it really preserve it, make it nice. I don't have a finished product with me. Maybe one of my little girls can get me one. Can you get me one of these that I printed out? Like downstairs, or I think downstairs maybe. Anyway, I'll have them go run and look for one. Anyway, so basically that's how you do it. Now, like I said, there are other methods. You could also, you could also use a 3-hole punch, and you can sew it with dental floss. That's another thing. And then you can still use this kind of binding on it. So I hope that this helps you. And there are probably a million ways to do this, but this is one that I use that really helps me a lot. So I guess that's it. So until next time, bye-bye.